One day, the principal of Shushan Elementary, Principal Verosh, was sitting in his office having a meeting with his vice principal, Ted. Now, one thing you gotta know about Ted, he hated nerdy kids. What with their math Olympics and their science fair, and the way they always got excited about the annual dental checkup. And he could never understand why they weren't excited about dodgeball the way he was excited. No one ever congratulated him that he was the 1994 regional dodgeball champion. No, he despised those nerdy kids. Anyway, one day the school secretary, Mrs. Vashti, walks in with some important information. But before she could say anything, Principal Verosh and Vice Principal Ted turned to her and say, "Go get us some coffee." Well, Mrs. Vashti was shocked. She said to them, "For everything I do around here, the scheduling and talking to parents and patching kids up when they're injured, all you can say to me is go get me some coffee? Well, let me tell you what. Why don't you go get it yourself?" And with that, Mrs. Vashti walked out of the school forever. Now, at that very moment, there was a young nerdy kid in the office named Morty. Now, Morty was there because he had broken his glasses on the playground and he was looking for some tape to fix them. But when he heard that Mrs. Vashti had left the school and that there was a job opening for secretary, he rushed home to tell his mother, Esther. Well, it's true that Esther was pretty nerdy herself. She loved doing science experiments at home and teaching young Morty how to properly floss his teeth. She wasn't sure if she would be a good fit for school secretary, but she applied anyway. And you know what? She got the job. Everyone seemed happy. But it didn't stay that way, did it? Because one day, Vice Principal Ted was walking down the hall and he saw a group of nerdy kids just standing around, talking about the math Olympics and the latest advancements in fluoride treatment. He walked up to them and said, "Hey man, what do you think you're doing? You should be outside playing dodgeball." And the nerdy kids said, "Please, sir, we don't enjoy that. We just want to make up fun math problems and maybe imagine great science experiments." Well, Ted was enraged. And he said to them, "You know what? Just for that, I'm going to cancel the science fair. I'm going to cancel the math Olympics. I'm going to cancel the annual dental checkup. And to make things worse, tomorrow afternoon, you're going to go to the gym and you're going to play a dodgeball game against me." The children were horrified. That afternoon, Morty ran home to tell his mother. And she thought for a moment. She said, "I should talk to the principal, but I don't want to get fired." Well, she knew it was the right thing to do, so the next day, Esther was in school and she called the principal over to her desk. And she said, "Do you know what Vice Principal Ted is doing?" And Principal Verosh said, "Yeah, I think he's canceling some things and trying some extracurricular sports for the kids. It sounds pretty good." Well, then Esther explained to him what was actually going on. And she told him that the nerdy kids should be able to enjoy the things that they like to enjoy without being forced to do things that they don't enjoy at all. And then she reached down and pulled open her desk drawer and showed Principal Verosh all of the test tubes and scales and all the other science equipment she liked to toy around with when she was practicing her science experiments. She explained, "I'm nerdy too, and if these nerdy kids aren't welcome at this school, maybe I'm not welcome either." Principal Verosh was horrified. He knew he couldn't lose Esther. She was doing such a great job. But also, he didn't want to undercut Vice Principal Ted. So they came up with a plan. He asked Esther to tell the kids that although they had to play the dodgeball game, we could bend the rules a little bit. Well, that next afternoon, it was time for the dodgeball game. Ted, he was in the gym, he was ready, he had his most famous championship dodgeball in his hand. And then he heard a strange sound. It was a rumbling sound. The doors to the gym flew open, and there was a whole gaggle of nerdy kids, but behind them was a giant, rapid-fire dodgeball catapult. They had used all of their skills of math and science and engineering to develop this monstrous machine. And when the game started, it fired dodgeball after dodgeball. It hit Ted in the head, in the knees, in the gut. It knocked him over. It rolled him all the way through the gym. Screaming, he stood up and ran from the gym, down the hall, out the door, and he was never seen again. And from that day on, some of the kids at Shushan Elementary still played dodgeball. because that's what they like to do. And some other kids spent their time preparing for the science fair or the math Olympics or the annual dental checkup, because that's what they like to do. But you can be absolutely sure that at Shushan Elementary, after that, everyone had really good teeth. And that's the end of that story.